everybody. Welcome back to the Quality Remarks Podcast. My guest today is Angie Jones. It's coming up on almost 10 years since I've been lucky enough to call you a friend. We've done conferences together, we've done some talks, we've definitely, when we're in the same place, find somewhere quietly so you can laugh at me dishing on the industry. And, having moved on a little bit from solely focusing on the testing world, Angie right now is in the middle of the agentic AI revolution. She led agentic engineering at Block, and is now the VP of the Agentic AI Foundation. There's too many agentic things and all this stuff.
Everything is
Um,
agentic.
yes, it is. You're helping shape the standards and infrastructure behind an increasingly autonomous system. So that makes you the exact right person I want to talk to today, Angie. So welcome back to
Thank
the Quality
you.
Marks podcast. How you doing, my friend?
I am great. Great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. I don't know when we're gonna cry. We normally, like last year at the Agile testing days, we had I
Yeah.
was causing trouble at the dinner and we had a good catch up there. So are you gonna be over there this year again or?
I'm not gonna make it. I have a conflict, but I gotta come find you. I'll come your way.
The odds are more likely increasing every day. You'll have to come over here as opposed to me going there. But anyway, so to get into it, right, to just get started, I want to start with a little myth busting if we can and talk a little bit about AI productivity. All right. So
Oh.
so there's lots of claims about coding agents and how much of that is just adoption being mistaken for productivity.
Mm. That's a really interesting question because I don't know anyone who is using AI and not busier than ever, you know? So, but there is this difference between like, am I productive? And productive means more than, what you might think. So, for example, I can crank out a ton of code. So, am I writing more lines of code? Yes. Is that solving an actual customer problem or like, bringing in new customers or anything that moves the needle on the bottom line?
Right,
That's questionable, right?
right,
Um,
right.
and so this was one of the problems that I had to address actually at Block when I was leading AI enablement there. So our engineers, we had 95% adoption rate. Everybody's using AI, right?
Mm.
But the CEO just kept saying the engineers not using AI. We need to get them to use AI. And I'm like, why do y'all keep saying this? They're
Right.
using it. I'm pulling the numbers. I'm like, look, they're using it. And they're like, no, we're not getting like features to customers any faster. And so I had to do like this whole deep dive into, all right, yes, they are using it, but that doesn't really mean that we're increasing developer velocity,
Right,
and it
right.
doesn't mean and it doesn't mean we're actually solving the problems that we need to solve. And so I
Right,
had to go really deep on the way that we were using the tools and what we were using them for, not just adoption.
right. And so what give me what are the metrics that you were pulling that like actually look at productivity? Because like I still think this is a bit of a like the whole ROI on AI I think is still not really,
Yeah,
revealed itself yet. And with as
yeah.
models get better, it seems like we're not doing anything new. It's just like doing the same things, maybe slightly better. So like when you were, I think you had like a bunch of AI champions at
I
Block. Like what
did.
what were you pulling for metrics to see if what was improving?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, these metrics changed as we matured. So initially, it was all about the adoption. Like, so pre that whole conversation with the CEO, it's like, okay, we just got to get them using it. So once we got to 95, I'm like, yay, mission accomplished. And then we had this tough conversation about, okay, I don't see a difference here, right?
Right.
And so it's like, okay, throw that whole metric out. I don't care about that anymore. But if you're at zero, okay, sure, that's a fine thing to track. But like these token leaderboards and all of that jazz, that's nonsense, right? Toss that part out. So now, after that, then I needed to see, okay, this is where we are on the journey. The next point needs to be like they're trusting these tools enough to be able to delegate work to them. They're also like embedding these tools within their systems, whether that be the repo, the CI pipeline, like wherever that is, so that it's not just one off, like, oh, Billy over there is great with AI, but everybody else on the team is struggling, right?
Right, right,
Um, Build it into the system so whoever points their agent at this code base, at this system, or whatever it is, has that same great experience, right? So
right.
I started measuring those sorts of things, and then even then, like once that is achieved, you move to the next level. So then it's like, all right, uh I'm looking at like autonomous engineering, right?
Right.
And how much are agents helping in the things that we need them. So here is the sprint, for example, that we've all agreed on. Product, this is not just engineer. Product,
Mm-hmm.
everybody has said this is what we should be working on. How much of this stuff can we delegate and get the agents to do, right? And so
Right.
that was there. And then even after that, the next phase of that is okay, customer value. So now I'm looking at customer feedback and satisfaction and all of the stuff that they're saying they want and the features and tracking that work to those things. How much of that are we
Okay.
checking off, you know? So I think it's a,
And
I
is that
would,
what he was interested in? Is like I because I'm like what moved the needle between just people using it all and like seeing actual like product, like that value realization? What was the difference in the kind of just adoption between like how were they using it differently that generated that?
yeah, sure. I think like all of this is new for everyone.
Mm,
So if I'm using a new tool, Keith, I'm not about to like delegate my work to this
right.
new. Let's just say like it's a new hire on the team. Just got here.
Right.
I don't know you. You don't know me. You don't know my systems, right?
Right.
And so I think it was just a matter of, okay, they had to kind of spend time together. They had to figure out what these tools are good at, what they're not good at, right?
Mm,
What parts do I need to stay in the loop? And then what parts are like, all right, I can delegate that part out, right? And
right.
I think it was like the trust factor. So I was looking at lots of signals. We had metrics even on how people were using the tools, like what were they accepting? Did they have where they needed to approve every action, or do they just kind of let the agent run? And this was
Right.
giving me a signal of how much the engineers actually trusted the tools that they were
Right.
using, how much they felt like they needed to still kind of babysit it, right?
Hmm.
So that moved the needle. Like once trust went up, and I think that's more than the tool itself, is a lot about them being comfortable with using the tool and how to use it responsibly, right?
Did you
That
notice,
definitely.
did you, sorry, but did you notice, is there like a difference between like profiles of people or like some folks, they were like really eager to start using stuff for like, and some people, like if you say there was your 0%ers, right? Were
Yeah.
there any like were they like older folks, not that I know any of them, that like are just ready, don't want to embrace change, or were there any kind of like, types?
So this is what I found, just in my experience. It was kind of a lot of folks in that middle. So, and this was like early on in the journey. So I found that like the kind of um junior and early senior engineers totally willing to try it. And then the very, very senior folks very willing to try it. It was
Okay.
like kind of the middle group of engineers that they
Yeah.
weren't as ready for this change.
Right. And is that like, was it a skills thing? Like they're still kind of feeling their oats a little bit around like how to be a good developer, or what, or, or was it like, what were some of the
I think
reasons?
I think that mid-level folks are like, I've just finally kind of mastered this
Right.
thing, right? I'm good at it. And a lot of the joy that they get from work is actually coding,
Right,
you
right.
know? Whereas if
Funny
you're
that
like,
they went to school for it, and yeah.
yeah, yeah. But if you're a junior, you're just like, I want like I want some wins. I don't really want to be struggling. That's not that exciting. And if you're very senior, you've gotten past it. Like I love coding, but I love solving problems
Right,
more,
right.
right? And then coding, I didn't notice at the time, but coding is a means to an end, right? And we thought like coding was the job. And I always talk about how engineers, a lot of them, not all, right? But a lot of them are so focused on the craft itself that they are not interested in the bigger picture of why we're building this. And we see this in products all the time. Like you'll start trying to use something, you say, this is such a horrible experience.
Mm,
Do these people not use it? No, they don't.
yeah,
They don't.
you're exactly right.
Because
Actually, exactly
because
right.
the yeah, the end goal was for them to figure out the engineering problem to make this thing. And once that's done, it's done, right? And so I find like those folks, are struggling a lot with this whole era.
You mean the ones who just view their job as like typing? They're just like literally
Yeah.
trying to write code, and
It's
that's
a
what they want to
craft.
do.
I'm not gonna downplay it to just typing, but like
But
those like engineering challenges and
fine,
like yeah,
it
yeah,
type
yeah,
engineering, right? Yeah, yeah. You know what? It's like people do this in testing all the time. They think testing is just test cases, and it's so much more than
yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's
yeah, that's true.
creative problem solving. But like I was trying to have a mild dig there, but yes, it's more than. But in a certain extent, some people do like in using coding agents. People think the hard part of coding is writing the code, and it's
Right.
never writing the code that's the hard part. That's the
That's
so
right.
which like leads me into like another question for you, because like again, Block is kind of a big case study on this. Like, did you see bottlenecks then move around? So if you're just like
Yes.
solving that problem for the, we'll call it the typing problem, if I'm gonna get killed for calling the coding typing all the time, but if did you where did you see some of those bottlenecks shift? If you're solving one problem, the kind of asymmetry moves somewhere else.
Yeah. So for engineers, that bottleneck shifted to the review process,
Mm.
right? So now everybody's shipping features. I don't know. I was shipping point 0.5 PRs a day,
Right.
and now I'm shipping four of them. And they're all sitting in the backlog to review. And they're also mixed with other PRs where people kind of got the agents to clean up some tech debt or something like that, right? And so now the backlog is just completely full.
Mm.
And nobody wants to go review it because I'm playing with my agents. Like I don't
Right,
want to
right.
go review. I don't want to review your agent's code, right? So that was one bottleneck. But you know what? Everybody in the whole pipeline was experiencing different bottlenecks in how they could shift work. So for example, our designers, they design stuff and then what? They got to hand it over to engineering. They view engineering as a bottleneck to
Right.
making their designs come to life, right? And
Wait till they
so
find out
they
about testing. Yeah.
so, and then testing is a bottleneck, right? And so are the testers supposed to like wait till all of that stuff is merged before they then pull the product down and test it? Like that's a
Mm.
bottleneck. Our designers then started like jumping in with their agents, and so they were producing code. And now you got the designers PRs up there too. So now it's just like PR galore.
Yes.
And nobody wants to review this. I mean, we
Yeah.
had that bottleneck before, and now it's just like a million times worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like I guess the coming into kind of the implementation of this stuff for the like which relating to an operational costs, right? And I think I read somewhere you said that like you've seen orgs that like their tools now are costing more than the engineers to maintain them. I mean, so at what point, and we'll put the whole, you know, hyperscaler, big AI, if that is a sustainable business model, conversation to one side. But like, at what point do you say like, okay, as an organization, this isn't worth it, right? You know, I mean, I'm the downsides of implementing this are more expensive than actually having a human generate this stuff, and as well, you know, is what we're generating worth it? Is it are we building the right stuff?
I think a lot of companies who have gone all in on this are at that point where they had to kind of slow down. Everything was like, oh, spin, spin, spin.
Mm.
Token leaderboards. Y'all not using AI enough. Use it more, more, more. And then that bill came,
Yeah,
you know? And I don't remember which company this was, but earlier this year they had spent their entire
I think it was Uber.
2026 budget. Was it Uber?
Yeah,
2026 budget in the first quarter.
yeah.
And then a couple other people like, oh, y'all too? Yeah, that happened to us.
Hmm.
And so people started like rethinking how to do this. Because yeah, I'm spending more on this stuff. I'm not getting the results that were promised to me, right? I've
Right.
kind of let go a majority of my organization. And
Yeah,
now
they were hiring people back.
all I'm stuck with is these expensive tools that are
Yeah.
not giving me the value, right? So I think they're at that point now where, and I love that. I love that this is where we are now. Okay, get off the Kool-Aid, everybody, and let's
Mm.
get back to reality and think about this sensibly. Like I think that people that are either extreme or being naive, right? Like this is not
It
like the
is a
answer to
cargo cult to a
everything.
certain extent. I mean, good
Yeah,
grief,
yeah.
there's enough AI doomers out there that are, you know, off the reservation as well. But like, there's plenty of people who are just like completely out of their minds for, you know, yeah. The
That's
testing
right.
world is literally littered with them. So,
Really.
oh yeah, yeah, it's bad. Yeah. Um, so like, look, what's one thing like from AI productivity perspective that you wouldn't that you maybe would have before that you wouldn't put in front of an executive now because you think it creates a misleading view of agentic value or using coding agents?
Um, I think for sure it's the adoption number, like
Yeah,
specifically around like token usage,
right.
was something that we tracked early on, right? I would take that out. In fact, I would reward people if they're able to be more productive with less token usage, you
Right.
know? How about that?
Okay. So look, it looks, you know, I wanted to ask you a couple questions about Block, and it looks like they're doing better. They had a rough couple quarters there. But you know, they have, you know, and you've talked about it as well, like incredible levels of agent adoption in there and AI coding. So you know, they're doing a lot better, right? And in their last kind of financial statement that they put out, they were talking about a lot of that why they're doing better is down to, you know, the AI adoption and that's what's improved the business for them. How do you like, but they don't like say exactly like how that worked, right? You know what I mean? I mean, there's you know there's other things that happened that might have improved their business model as well. So like how do you go about proving that value? You know what I mean? When they're making some pretty bold claims, that how do you tie those together?
So I think it gets back to the earlier metrics that I talked about with, okay, these things were on our roadmap and they've been kind of sitting there for a while. There's several items that they have publicly announced that they were going to focus on. Uh, and it's been a year, maybe 2 years, and there's not been much progress there. That
Yeah.
now they're able to find traction because of how they've integrated. One way, and I'll tell you, like Block is extremely advanced in the way that they utilize these tools.
Yeah.
So one way, and this is public, I'm not sharing anything that's not. One way that they've done this is to essentially build world models within the company where The agent understands every service that exists in the company, the code base of where that is, how it all ties together, and then also understands the customer. So it has access to all of that data as well. So how are customers using the products? What do they want? What are they struggling with? What reasons are we losing customers, right? And so when it
Right.
has all of that context, they're able to utilize these tools much, much better. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'll
Right.
tell you, like, a lot of the reason why it's not like they're like this crappy company, why couldn't they get stuff done? A lot of the reason that it was so slow before is because the company was built into like these separate companies. So you had Cash App, that's like the
Right.
peer-to-peer part, and then you had Square, that's like the customer. So now you have the customer, and then you also have the other side of the counter, and they live in two different places, two different, like, for all intents and purposes, two different companies, right?
Right. Right.
And so they made changes to try to bring that together. But again, these systems are so different and separate, that became a big challenge. So now you have these agentic powers that you can say, oh, here's everything, all the mess that we have. I need you to hold that in your big brain about how all of this connects
Right.
together. So now when I want to make features that will integrate these separate products, that's a lot easier to do now.
Right, right. I mean, do you think, and I kind of know how I feel about it, but like the, do you think AI gets a little bit of a pass with how we calculate ROI and stuff like that because of a bit of the FOMO and a bit of the severe downwards pressure to use it? Because like if I if I showed you a testing tool that was saying, oh, they automated 25% of the tests there, and there was a 25% increase in the business revenue because of that, you wouldn't take me seriously for a minute, you know what I mean? Because those two, do we just, I'm wondering like how do we track this kind of value? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like how, because a lot of these companies aren't sharing a lot of data. And I just wonder, like, people are wondering, well, what's a good metric or something to show the causality there of, yeah, we implemented an agentic workflow, and how does that, show its return?
Money, Keith. The answer is always money. So you have more revenue now, yes
Yeah.
or no? We don't got to
Fair
make
enough.
this complex.
Yeah, that's usually a good answer. Yes. All right. I think I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about like a thing I've been writing a little bit about is what they call it verification asymmetry, which kind of ties into testing a little bit. But like when one AI is the generator, right, and then we use another AI to review it, like what makes the review like actually independent with evidence as opposed to just kind of like an automated agreement that you can look at. So what's your view on that?
Yeah. So, um, I've worked with Elizabeth Hendricks, who I think most of your listeners will know.
Yeah,
She and I
she's
and
gonna be at ATD this year.
oh,
So yeah.
okay, wonderful, wonderful. What a treat. And several other authors. We actually worked on this for months, this paper on like agentic code reviews. And then we also had a lot of it, like I had a lot of real world experience at Block with this because like I said, that PR backlog was insane. And so you had to face the reality of, okay, this cannot be like a human bottleneck. And as cringe as it sounds, like it really takes like
We're
you're trying
talking
to
about AI, Angie. You got a lot of leeway to be cringe before you enter cringe. You can say a lot of stuff and it not be cringe. So give us your best shot.
a lot of the stuff that I say sounds absolutely insane to people who are not at that step of the journey yet, right? And I
Right.
think about that often. Like that would sound insane to me. Like if somebody said that to me a year ago, I would think that they were nuts, right? Um,
It's a
so
lot of buildup. What do you
yeah, so I realized this. But
think?
it's like, okay, someone had the idea, like, what if we don't have the humans review the code? And we go, what?
Mm,
Mind you, like this is a fintech company, right? And it's like there's like compliance and like
mm,
regulation and stuff like that. And and we're like, okay, we can't continue down this road of everything is in a backlog for the humans to review because again, ROI, right? And the ultimate result is being able to ship to your customers. And if that is not happening, who cares how fast you got the work done if it's just
mm.
sitting on the shelf? And so we had to explore the idea of agentic code reviews. So back to and we did a lot. So one thing was like one of the reasons people didn't even want to review the code is because I mean, don't have your agent like create slop and then you give it to me to
Mm,
review. Like what? You
right.
review it. Like clean that up before you hand it over. And so one thing we did was add like hooks to their agents that they could use locally. So you kind of just make sure stuff is up to par. And then another technique is like this adversarial reviewer.
Right,
So
right.
this is different. So if you have your agent, this is what a lot of people do initially, is you have your agent like create a feature. And then you say, check your work after it. It checks his work. And then, like, maybe you might say, check it one more time. You think you're being extra careful, right? And to the agent, it is like biased with all of the
Yeah, yeah,
decisions
yeah.
that
It's
it made
yeah.
along the way.
There's a lot
And
of
it's like,
studies coming out about that right now about agent, like LLM as a
yeah,
judge and agent evaluation bias.
exactly. So it thinks it did a superior job. Like this is superb. It's great. Stamp of approval. So now I even have a agent skill that I run after anything that I build. That says the skill is a recursive, and this is on my GitHub if anybody wants to take it and use it. But I have a recursive adversarial review where the agent has to call a different agent, like a sub agent or something, and do not tell it why you built it, what you built it, and all of that. They don't need all of that, right? It
Hmm.
can have like the initial context of what was the ticket number or the issue number or something like that. What was the problem you were trying to solve?
Hmm.
And then here's the diff, right? And
Right,
then that sub agent reviews it. Keith always come that thing comes back with a list of errors. And
right.
I say, I don't want to know about this. I need you to fix it. So this is now recursive. You talk with that sub agent, you get the list of problems, you fix it.
Right.
Don't go back to that sub agent either. I want a fresh new sub agent that you
Right.
now do this with. And then y'all continue this whole dance until there's nothing left to fix, right?
Right. But
Nothing
how
like,
do you know that
substance.
that's like actually providing, sorry to interrupt, but like how do you know that that's actually providing value as opposed to just convergence, right? It's like if you're so far removed from like, and this is the problem I have with like AI agentic test platforms to a certain extent because you're just layering opaqueness over opaqueness. And I want to know more about something in order to trust it, not less. Right. So like how at some point, and I think this is all heading towards we don't do anything of this anymore. It writes it. I just talk to my box and it writes some stuff and then it tests it and then I use it. You know what I mean? It's like is at what right? At what point is that where we're going? Because that's what
Yeah,
that
we
sounds
are.
like.
We are going, but that was the key part, like the LLM as a judge, the adversary review, like these types of techniques to get past a lot of the bias. Like, will it be perfect? No, right? And I'll tell you, like, I'm a maintainer on Goose. So Goose is the open source AI agent.
Mm,
That project has like 500 plus contributors to it. And so I see this as scale. So not just with like my projects, but we would now have like an influx of these strangers who are contributing to our project with their agents, right?
Mm,
And so we flooded with PRs and we had to use this technique. Before we were ready to like, oh, should we just not accept PRs? It was that bad, the quality. And now we have like one of these sorts of reviewers anytime a PR is open and kind of gets rid of a lot of the junk. So when we still review before we merge anything. We haven't gotten to the point where it's just like automatic merge. So as humans, we review. So I can tell you, I don't know, I don't have stats pulled for you, but I can tell you from personal experience, the quality has improved substantially to the point I don't mind reviewing a PR because I know all of the slop is out of it. And
right.
I know that it'll likely match the intent of whatever the user was trying to do. So now my review becomes, is this even a direction that we want to go in the project? Not that the contribution is
Right.
bad.
Right. So how do you like how do you all that like what parts of that would you say shouldn't be, agentic, or what parts shouldn't be part of that workflow? Is there anything that you would say should be out of that model? I mean, I know we're because this is I see this just increasingly of people are talking about, well, it's just you're not even going to do the verification anymore, right? I mean, that's just like, people making wild claims about, agentic testing as well. Like, at what point are you just like, you're not in the loop on any of this? And, and then what does that mean for, you talked about financial services and regulatory environment. At what point does it mean the person who's hit go and then everything just happened on its own? And what point there's always a throat to choke to say, I work in financial services my entire career. They want to know who's responsible when
They
things
need
go
a name,
bad.
a
Yeah, give
human
me a
one.
name. Oh wait, was that was afterwards they wanted to know. And as well, if you're an officer and you knew and didn't do anything, they want to know that too, right? So it's like, where is how does that work in that, particularly from a regulatory perspective?
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually just wrote a piece a couple of weeks ago about the EU AI Act, which
Mm.
is very interesting in that like they're basically saying these same things. Like you need to be able to you need to capture everything that is happening, like any
Mm.
of this stuff, who did what and be able to produce it on demand, you know?
Well, they
And
say very specifically that like agentic, coding, or like agentic workflows need to have the same level of governance oversight as a human would, and that requires agency training, sufficient
Mhm.
governance, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know
Mhm.
how, like, one, I don't know how that works in the small of what you're describing, and as well how that scales. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because at some point it doesn't take long that you're beyond what an actual person can review.
Yeah, that's right. I don't have the solution to this. We actually have and so this is the beauty of the Agentic AI Foundation. We have a working group specifically dedicated to governance and regulation, and they're actually talking about this very thing, right?
Right.
And those meetings are open if anybody wants to join the working group or just listen in or anything like that. It's on AIF.io. But
Okay.
yeah, for all of this, back to your question about just like where's the human, you know, and my thoughts on this change as the tools advance. So like every month, I probably have a different perspective of where the human fits into the thing. Fortunately, I have not gotten to the point where they are out of the loop, but right now they are the system builders, right? And
Uh,
so I look at all of this stuff as automation because I got an automation background. So
right,
I
right,
look at AI as, oh, we've added like reasoning to an automated flow.
right.
That's it, basically. Like
Yeah. But
no more.
yeah,
It's not like magic or anything. So in automation, we've always talked about there's some things that shouldn't be automated, right?
right.
There's some things that should be. So I still look at it like that. I don't think like throw
That
everything
was
to it.
I think that was the first talk I saw you give back in like 2016 or something like that in Atlanta
Exactly.
about your model of how to decide what to automate and most importantly what not to automate.
Yep, 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 exactly. And so, and I also still, I think everybody is starting to use these tools. So think of them as junior automation engineers, right? And basically, and you want to throw it at everything. And you go, no, wait, you probably shouldn't automate that, right? Or something like that. And then some of the stuff you can still automate using deterministic tools like good
Right,
old-fashioned scripts, and then figure out the parts that you want to bring AI in,
right,
right? And
right,
I think we're thinking about this backwards, like, oh, what parts do like AI don't go in or whatever? What parts do I as the human? And the question should be, what parts does AI actually go in, right?
right,
Opposite.
right, right. Did you see my, I did a talk a couple months ago on the death of test engineering. Like,
No.
yeah, I'll send you the link to that. You'll like it. It's not long. It's like 20 minutes, but it's basically about what agentic test platforms are going to do to the automation engineers.
Oh,
Job.
wow.
Yeah.
Did you get tomatoes thrown at you?
Oh, well, interestingly enough, Browser Stack hosted it, and I don't think they were really sure what I was gonna say. But I told them they couldn't preview it before I mean, I let them know what I was gonna talk about, but like it was yeah, it had some interesting reactions to it. But I view that same thing as like that career path. I mean, like when you talk to tool vendors and people who are building agentic workflows, th they are very explicit about like that, well, what those tools are intended to do, which is to remove automation engineers, right? I mean, that
Mm,
is that
mm,
whole
mm.
career path and that whole role, and I think as well when you look at like the way like Claude code can generate tests whilst it's building the code and
Right.
instrument it and everything else, it's like why would we need these people anymore? So and my view on that is it doesn't even need to be better. It just needs to be slightly worse, and people will bite their hands off to buy it. So, um,
My one of my very first blog posts, it might have been the first one, I don't know. Um, this was my intro into like the public space, was about how developers shouldn't lead test automation.
right,
And it was controversial. It was like pretty spicy take. And the point that I was making in that blog post was that it's a different mindset building the thing and testing the thing.
yeah,
And this is even within the same person. When I'm building a feature, I am not a good tester.
mm,
And but when I'm in a test mindset, oh, I'm amazing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's just two different mindsets. And
yeah,
I'm finding that same principle holds with like these agentic tools. Like they are not great at writing tests at all. Like,
mm,
the tests are shallow. They're writing them to prove that whatever they wrote is good enough versus, trying to actually find gaps or
yeah,
holes that they may have missed, right?
yep.
So I don't know. It's just an
No,
instance.
I was literally writing about this week that like the what I'm hearing from particularly around a like there's a lot of research that just came out from last year about um bias in LLM as a judge, AI led evaluations, that they prefer like preference leakage, I believe that it was one of it was called. Like they literally a model not only prefers its own, model, so like anthropic models like stuff from
Mm,
Anthropic, but
yeah,
they also prefer AI over human, so like human review. So like
uh,
there's all sorts of bias that in that LLM and the language they were using was reminding me of how we talked about the testing mindset for years. And there's all
mm,
sorts of people saying, "Oh, that's a myth. There's like developers can test." And the point is as you were pointing out, it's not that developers can't test; it's that the mindset is different
that's
of
right.
looking for problems as opposed to building something. And also, it was a very
Yeah.
it felt like very vindicating,
Yeah.
and all that
Yeah.
language
The
is like,
whole goal is different, right? Like if you
yes,
think about,
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
So look, you mentioned human in the loop stuff, which I'm and in the AI world I prefer to as like kind of like a sock and a dryer with the way people are generating so much stuff these days. Um, how do you like what are parts of the human in the loop that like, how does that scale with some person who's looking after even five agents? You know what I mean? Is it just like the review and validation just extremely shallow and how does that keep pace with the productivity gains you're talking about at Block? How is that even? My view is, or my suspicion is, it doesn't. But like, I don't. I think how does that scale in what you've experienced so far?
I view the human in the loop as more of an orchestrator than necessarily a reviewer. Like, yes,
Right.
reviewing, but their core role is to essentially take something or an idea, a ticket, whatever that is, figure out like what is it that we should be building and kind of orchestrate one to many agents to get that done and make sure that it's
Right.
getting done, right? Now, like, do they need to go in the weeds and get in the editor and like review each line of code and everything? Probably not anymore,
Right.
right?
Right.
But I also think a lot of what we need now is system thinkers because that's the skill and the level that we're operating at now. Like
Mm,
you are
mm.
building like this system around like in which the agents will operate, right? Even if you're building, so what I've been doing a lot lately is building agents, not coding agents, but like operational agents, because in my new role is three of us. And we got a lot to do, right? And so a lot of the operational
Please tell
stuff
me
that
one of them isn't just to like automate your email.
no, no.
That's all I hear about.
No, but like say for example, we're throwing like we got conferences like there's maybe 10 across the globe. And so I hope I have an agent that helps me with like everything related to this, right? The speakers, the agenda, and just like who is where. Do I have any topics that would be relevant in this other part of the world, kind of that sort of thing. Has anybody, all sorts of things just across like these various events or whatever. And so I needed to build that agent, and it's one thing to just like tell some coding agent, hey, build me a thing that does this. Like that's not gonna work. You gotta like if you really want this to work and not just one off but long term where you like it's giving you value every day, you got to put your thinking hat on. You got to drive, right? And
Right.
so there's a lot of systems thinking that goes into that. And what I found is like, oh, this is kind of like the same little vibe I was getting when I was writing code. And so those people that are like, oh, I miss coding and I'm not in a dev flow anymore. I tell them, oh, you just got to go up to the system part and it's all there again because now I'm thinking about like no, don't write it like that, I don't need everything in one big prompt. Like we need to divide this up. We need some sub
Right.
agents. We need this is a repeatable thing, so this should
Right.
probably be like an agent skill, or this should be a sub agent, which is essentially like a module or a function that we could call when we need it. It doesn't need the
Right.
whole
Right.
context, it just needs to do one job. And so that is really interesting. And like I have not seen where uh any of the models can take that on by itself right now, you know?
Right, right. And I th that's where I think there's a little bit of a delta between like what how I my reading of the regulations like the EUAI Act stuff out in South Korea as well. Like there's the Financial Control Authority in the UK has like this regulation there it's more like practices it's called SS123 and it's sort of like model performance and evaluation. And when I look at those, having worked in financial services a long time, done a lot of regulatory responses, it feels like to me like they think, yeah, you are reading all that code, right? So the human is actually, and I mean, again, the practicalities of it, that's impossible, right? I
Right.
mean, I just think that it's impossible, or you're just adding layers on top of it. So I think there's gonna be some kind of reconciliation between those two. And like, what I mean, at what level would you be comfortable saying? Yeah, I'm the approver of this. Is it, do you need to read the code? Do you just review the PR? Do you just let them look at the design? Like what level is it? Would you say, yeah, okay, I've actually reviewed that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what it is, right? And so this is the premise of the paper that Elizabeth and I wrote. It's based on risk, right? So
Mm.
if this is not something that's risky, like I don't care. Like we got all of this stuff to review it and it says it's good, whatever, ship it. Um, but if you have something that is of high risk, right, and you determine what risk means in your context, then that's where you utilize your human energy, right? So I
Mhm.
think I think it depends on that. So that's what the paper is about.
You're giving me it depends answer.
It is. I chuckled inside when I said it. I was like, he gonna love this one. But no, it really does depend. And I think like anyone who's saying, oh yeah, we don't read the code, we don't review the code, like never. Like, even for your most critical things, that's alarming, you know?
Oh, I mean, again, having like I would say, you don't want to go into the kitchen of your favorite restaurant because you'll never eat there again. If people saw how code was written or reviewed or systems were built in most banking, applications, they
Uh,
they they
yeah.
they'd have a view on that as well. So, I mean, I'm not pretending that everybody reviews every single line of code to I mean, because it's such a wide population as well, and people do it better than others, you know what I mean? And, regulators always don't go in and say, let me see all your code review minutes. You know how they,
Right,
that, so
right.
I know there's a gap between there as well. I just feel like we're, 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 two things are converging, right? We're building a world where like it's impossible to review everything because there's just too
Mm,
much code being written, and then the tool, but the expectation is that we're going to be reviewing all those things, or the accountability will be there. And then once something like breaks proper bad, you know what I mean, they're just like, well, wait a minute, who reviewed this? Did we understand what the system was even
mm,
doing or how it was written? And which brings me a little bit to testing. We bring you back to your old world a little bit. Which is, do you think, everybody seems to be freaking out now that you know, the developer's a machine now, right? And so
mm.
suddenly independent validation or independent testing is, really, really important. Now, most of the testing industry's view is, well, that should be an AI, you know what I mean, doing all that validation. But do you still see a role for like independent testing or independent testers within an agentic development or coding agent world?
I do. In fact, I think that testers have this opportunity to redefine what that means, right? So the way that we did it before, kind of same thing we saw when we shifted from like waterfall to agile, and that kind of disrupted everybody. So, oh crap, where does the testing fit in, right? That was another talk that I gave a while back. Was like, how do you do this stuff in sprint? You remember that one?
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's kind of the same thing. Now you're at another point
I'm
where
finding here,
data.
Angie, that I think I read more what you write than you read what I write. So
But
I think we found another asymmetry here where like
But but now they need to figure out, okay, given this new landscape in like the flow of software delivery, where does testing fit in, and
mm,
how can we do it sooner and faster?
mm,
But I'm not hearing enough of that sort of conversation, and I keep telling people, everybody I talk to, them like the testers could be killing it right now. Like they are probably the most valuable piece to
mm,
all of this because everybody else is like moving fast. They're not really checking the
yeah,
work. And these folks, one, they understand like what quality software is supposed to be. And they also understand how to automate stuff. Like they should
right.
be running the show right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I think that and so to having talked a little bit and doing a lot of work in the industry on this right now, I think there's a couple things like first, people are just scared because as you know, the first people that they get rid of all the time are testers, right? So we're constantly under threat as an operational cost. You've got kind of downwards pressure of people adopting all these systems, but I don't think it's as widespread as what people would think. So it's like I've been to a lot of vendor
Mhm.
conferences and talked to them, and I was at one the other day and like I didn't get the feeling from them, and I asked them directly that like they were using their agentic platform on like a real system with that was serious in a serious way at a scale on a system that had world implications, right? So like, I don't mean to talk bad about other industries, but like, your website goes down, okay. You take down
Yeah.
the, national payment system, mom and pop don't get their pension checks. That's a whole other
Yeah.
thing, right? So like
Yeah.
again, talking about risk, I mean, I don't see a lot of people using agentic test platforms and those. So there's like all these weird pressures, and I don't think the pickup, like, so you talk to a lot of testers, yeah, they might be using Claude to write a test strategy or write test cases, or they're using building their own little bot or something. But like the scale and type that you're talking about is, I don't
Yeah.
think is as broad adoption as so testers aren't getting exposed to it to kind of be
Okay.
in that environment or be in that place. But I agree with you, and also, the automate everything policy for 20 years, and that everybody like a lot of the kind of core testing skills that you and I learned, coming up in the like people don't know.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
actually like the great things you
That's
were talking about, testers should be able to do. A lot of these folks don't
yeah.
know how to do, you know.
Okay.
Um, so you
Yeah.
talked about this kind of your one of your patterns being this adversarial review, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what talk me through that a little bit. Like how could a tester adopt that mind frame, or I think you said you've got the code out somewhere that people could use. Is that how could somebody adopt that mind frame or mindset when testing it?
I think most testers already have that mindset, right?
Yeah.
You are the adversarial reviewer. That's why, like, that's why
They're
you
not
get
all
credit.
like me.
Like you are reviewing this from a different lens without like just trying to, in fact, you have the opposite lens of, oh, I'm basically walking the happy path and making sure that everything works beautifully. You are going in trying to find where the holes, where the gaps, what didn't they think about, right? And so
Right, right.
keeping that mindset I think is important, but I don't think just like the developers are unable to review the PR, like if your team is like cranking this stuff out, I heard somebody was like, "Oh, we're shipping 2 releases a day." You can't keep up with that, right? So what are you going to do? And I don't have the answer. I think somebody needs to be defining what this looks like. What is the answer, right? How do
Yeah.
we make sure like we're testing this stuff?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I know I'm just getting old, but like I just like sometimes when I hear people talk about something, I'm like, why do you need to ship this much software? Most of the software I use sucks. You know what I mean? It's like it's not getting better. There's just getting more of it and more pervasive, which again, I maintaining that estate means you're not a producer, but we're just producing a lot of crap. I would
Yeah.
just like things to talk together and work well together.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I, so I mean, I've been trying to challenge some of my clients on like, do you really need to do this? You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
I get that, there's a lot of pressure to adopt things, but I don't think, you know, I don't think the FOMO seems to be residing a little bit of like, you're not gonna, go under if you don't use, AI right now. But I don't understand like this, like what it's bringing to the table. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I get some of it, but not all of it. I wanted to ask you about another thing. And again, I don't know if it was I need to look it up. It was the title of the thing you wrote, or somebody titled something else, or it was called "We're All Really Managers," right? Or no, we're all managers
We're
now.
all managers now. Yeah.
Yes, and so I was like, are we all really managers now? And this is the thing that like there's a paradox in there that I can't kind of get my head around, which is like, so we're saying that, an engineer's value isn't just typing, right? It's
Correct.
all the architecture, judgment, all that kind of stuff that comes with it. And we'll throw in supervising agents, or reviewing the result. I get that. But how do those people acquire that judgment, right? They did all the fucking work to build it, right? So they have all the scars to get there. They made mistakes, they had to debug stuff. Like if we don't have people, if we're outsourcing all that work to agents, where's the people who are going to build this stuff and supervise it in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like, how are we going to, have that group of people who can, because I want to retire at some point. I know well, you'll probably work forever, but,
I would
um,
like to
yes.
retire.
So where are these people? How are they going to learn?
You don't think they'll get the same lessons, but just much faster? Like
There's,
you,
well, okay, sorry, go ahead.
let's say you learned those lessons from making mistakes, or you saw like what happens when we do X, or like how customers respond when we do Y. I think they get those lessons a lot faster now.
But do you think you could do your job, right, and all the accolades and experience if you hadn't come up through this business
If
the
I
way you
hadn't put
did?
in the work.
If you didn't have to write the code yourself, if you didn't debug those things, if you didn't, I've screwed up so many times trying to do this job right over my career. You got scars like that because you built the thing. You didn't, I think you said, babysit, a bot doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, so at what level do you have to actually have done the work to know? Like, would you want somebody to come and look, inspect your house that you were going to buy if that person hadn't worked in that business for a long time, knew what to look for, had built houses, had knew the codes, had done all that stuff? Like, would you trust that person?
No, I do want that. What I don't quite buy is that those lessons are in the typing of the code itself. Now, some of them are, and the ones that are, I don't know if they remain applicable. I'll give you an example, right?
Okay.
So some of the stuff I talked about with building systems, and I talked about why we should like have modular things, right? So that's something that's in code. That's a code smell if you don't have that sort of thing, right?
Mhm.
Okay, if I'm not writing the code and I don't have to maintain it myself anymore, and nobody else on my team does either, and that's a job we have now given to the bots. I don't know. The answer could be yes, it could be no. I don't know the answer. But my question is, does that still matter? Right? Can the agent still do this part of the work? Or will I get a shitty system at the end? Right? Will I get like this buggy application where it's a nightmare to use for users? The answer could be yes. If the answer to that is yes, and somebody else who's new and all they know is how to like manage agents, they don't know how to get in the code themselves, they have still yet learned that lesson, right?
Yeah.
um and they got to send their agent back in there to go figure out why or whatever. So that's my point.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'll concede a little bit of that like certain things, like, you wouldn't expect your home inspector to know like a brick composition, you know what I mean? And like so there's some of that there's certain amount of trust, but he would know like what a good pattern looks like.
Yeah,
He would know
yeah,
competent, providers. He would know how to look for failures and signals like that. And that's probably by doing, the actual work. And that's what I'm just worried about, like the talent pipeline for the future. Like, as you know, there was just a report, I think it was, I can't remember where it came out of. I'll put it in the links in the show about how, I think it was a Forbes report, how entry-level roles are getting killed right now. You know what I mean? Like that, like we're seeing that, across all management consultancy, the big four, entry-level roles are going down. And as one, it's usually a cost-cutting exercise, but also a lot of that work is being agentified or give
yeah.
in particularly development work. And so my concern is like, well, there's two parts. It's like I don't know myself, like what I couldn't do the work I do and advise my clients the way I do if I hadn't started out in testing and got 30 years of doing this from the ground up. Because even though I don't remember every single thing of it, but I've got there's certain patterns that and that only come from having lived that
Yeah,
life, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
where are these people going to pick that up? Particularly as we're looking at a world where it's increasingly agentified and we need more people to supervise things. How are they going to know? They're
yeah.
going to end up asking an AI, what do I need to look for? You know?
So that's interesting. I also have wondered like what training these folks will look
Mm,
like. So I've been like kind of talking to these various like places that were boot camps before where they were just teaching you
right.
like hardcore programming. And I've been asking like how are y'all solving for this now? Like people are writing with the agents now. And so one group I talked to a couple of weeks ago was resilient coders and they said they have a program where they teach you the fundamentals still. So you still get all of that and then they have the next level where they teach you the agentic engineering part. But you cannot skip that part and go to that part. You
Right, right.
have to get the fundamentals. So I thought that was a really good way. And I also leave you with a story. So I wanted to experiment with bringing in entry level folks who have experience with like these coding agents like they can do that really well and so we screen them to make sure like they're not just like kind of blindly handing everything off to the agent and not using their judgment so we brought 10 of these folks in and for their onboarding exercise. It was in person. We brought in some customers who shared frustrations that they have with the platform. And so these people, this is like their first day on the job. So they just got access to our systems. They don't know the code base or anything. They then had to solve those customer problems. So what we were trying to teach them is like, this is your end goal doing like fun shit is not your end goal, right? That's not your end goal is like customer satisfaction. So you've just listened to pain points from real customers. Here is your brand new code base that is probably this huge amount of repo, and yeah, it might touch these other services. And here's your tokens to use, you know, whatever coding agent you want to do. And that was the project for 2 days. And they solved it. And they were ecstatic that they were able to do that. The customers were overjoyed by the solutions that were presented to them. And so I don't know, Keith. I think like the
Well,
future is not as dim as we think.
I'm sure they were very happy that you sucked the fun out of it on day one. Like you're not here for fun. Work sucks. You're here to solve a problem. You go have fun outside of the confines of work, you know?
Make this fun.
Yes. I mean, but that, like, and I talk to a lot well, I'm gonna say, I consider like people in their 20s young people these days, you know what I mean? But like, I talk to a lot of our grads and do a lot of online training and stuff like that, mentoring a couple folks. A lot of them are kind of viewing this whole AI, I don't know if I call it a revolution right now, but wave is like a really the ultimate ladder pull, right? Because people like us who are
Mm.
like mid to, last third of their career type of thing, we are so in demand because we built them from the ground up. And I compare it to like my own kids who are teenagers who are like, they are incredibly tech savvy. They don't know how any of it fucking works. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
Their
That's true.
technology is so pervasive in their life, but they couldn't build any of it. You know what I mean? And
Expert users.
expert users, yeah. And so like
Yeah.
we're automating away all the entry level jobs. You know what I mean? It's like how are they and we're so in demand it doesn't sit real well with
Yeah.
a lot of the folks I talk to and I don't have a good answer for it either, other than
Yeah.
constantly trying to share my experience with people.
There's another technique I want to like someone else I talked to who was doing one of those boot camps and they did it a little differently. And I thought this was interesting and it speaks to your point about how people can get those lessons. So
Mm,
they give before they really teach the concepts, they give the assignment and like go have your agent build it. I don't care.
right.
And they come back to the class and then they say maybe like okay, in class, like I need you to add this feature or do this or do that. And they're struggling, right? And then they use that opportunity to teach them about the concepts and how you manage this stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so they said that was working pretty well too. So I don't know, Keith. I think we kind of got to rethink a lot of what we're doing and how we've
Yeah.
done it before. But I hope this doesn't mean nobody else gets in.
Yeah. I mean, me too, because somebody's got to take my place at some point, or I'm just gonna
You know?
keel over at some point. All right, so there's another thing I wanted to ask you about, which was I finally I remembered about it when I was planning for this, and I tracked it down. It was a LinkedIn thing that you said about everybody being afraid of killer robots, but what they really should, the real threat is egotistical billionaires obsessed with AGI. But well, apparently you didn't think we were ready to have that conversation. So, and we went back and forth a little bit on the post at the time. So, I mean, I think you can't read the news these days without seeing some BS coming out of that lot. You know what I mean? Or some crazy claim, or there's a lot of you know, doom predictions that I think try and keep them relevant. And the money is insane that's being thrown
Yeah.
at this. And you can, make a lot smarter people than me are making better economic arguments about, why we're throwing trillions of dollars at this thing. But I mean, you've got a fairly senior role now within the, Agentic AI Foundation. You're helping build standards and the infrastructure for all this. Has your view changed from your, post last year at all?
My view hasn't changed. And what my view is that we're in this global race where everybody wants to be first. And so I need to be the one to solve AGI is the stance that I think anyone who is in the game has, right? So anyone who's like at one of these frontier labs, like they want to be the one to crack it. And with that,
You think that's
it's
LLMs
like
though? I do not think that's going to come from LLMs.
I don't know, Keith. I would prefer we not have AGI
Yes.
personally. So,
Well,
um,
they always make these claims of like, oh, well, we got to keep it in the safe hands. I'm like, have you heard what
yeah,
these
yeah.
motherfuckers are saying? I don't think you're in the safe hands.
But that means they're gonna like we don't have time to pay attention to like safety concerns or regulations. Like there was a lot happening in the US around like, hey, no regulations, right?
Mm,
For right now because we gotta move fast. And it's like, what? No regulation?
still is. It still is.
And so that's
Hey,
what I
and that's
mean
bled over to
about
the EU, Angie, as well. Like the safe the high risk standards within the EU AI Act have been
yeah,
kicked
yeah.
down the can to 2028.
I did see they kept
Yeah, they
punting it.
just keep kicking it down the road. Mm,
But yeah, that's because we're in this global race and
mm.
everybody wants to, no one wants to be left behind. And there's a few egotistic billionaires who want to be the one to crack it, right? And so that means by any means necessary. But I'm starting to see that tide shift a bit where
Yeah.
even those folks are starting to say, wait. I think we're moving a bit too fast.
Mm.
And it's all it's getting a little dangerous, right? But hey,
Yeah. I mean, how do you like distinguish between like genuinely useful agentic, engineering as opposed to stuff that's just like being foisted upon us because of an immense financial, apparatus that's pressing, private equity and the credit markets, over their skis and funding all this stuff. Like how do you differentiate between those two?
yeah. I basically just try my best to stay in the middle where I do realize that there's value in this, but it's not the end all be all, but it's also not a nothing burger, right? And
Right.
so I kind of consume a lot of information. I try different things, and some stuff I go, oh, that's not worth my time, right?
Right, right.
And stuff I go, oh, there's actually something to this, right? And those are the things that I then go a bit deeper on.
Yeah. Do you think? this might be a more pointed question. Stuff like the Agentic, AI Foundation and building global standards, is that facilitating the world that you were warning us about with these people, or or is there a voice inside that foundation that can say, "Hey, wait a minute here, like let's have some pause for thought."
Yeah. So the foundation, what this does is brings everybody to the table. So listen, let's think about this collectively versus like one company going and like trying to create like the entire game board for everybody else. It's like,
Hmm.
no. Agentic commerce is a great example. So that's one that we're looking into really heavily right now. So you have like Visa doing something, you got Google doing something, PayPal, Stripe, everybody's like kind of doing their own thing. And we say, hey, 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 come on. Everybody, let's get together. Let's define like standards of how this will work, right? And it can't just work like you can't own agentic commerce by yourself, right? And so these folks from these various companies, they then collaboratively come up with how this should work. They then think together about like consequences and all of that. And then once we've established that, now you can compete, right? Like go flourish, but we're all on like solid ground.
Right, right. Okay. All right. I'm thinking I got 10 questions for you. Do you want to do call this 10 questions with Angie Jones? There should be short answer questions that
All
people
right.
have asked me. Are you ready for these?
Uh-huh.
All right. I don't They might not all have short answers, but you can do your best shot. You don't have to, right? So, first one is what name one thing that agents demonstrably do well today.
Um, Consolidate and summarize a lot of information.
Okay. Um, what's one thing currently marketed as as an agentic capability that's mostly bullshit? You can tell who listens to me.
I think like any sort of like um human like assessing things if you were using it for like hiring or like finding like quality people and stuff like that, like I don't like how that's done, and I don't think that's a
Right.
good use.
Right. Oh, you mean like in recruiting, like AI
Like
assessing?
recruit anything like that. Like, oh, I'm running
Yeah.
anything. It could be something small. I'm running a competition. Go find me like the winners in this pool or something like
Yeah, yeah,
anything
yeah.
like that.
Okay, all right. What's an AI productivity claim that you genuinely trust?
Um, that I can move faster. Is that a
Okay.
productivity? I can move faster. Doesn't mean that it's going to be better or that I'm producing the right result, but I can definitely go
Yeah, it
faster.
did. All right. What's a metric that you don't trust?
Token usage.
Token use. All right. What's one place where AI evaluating AI is good enough?
Um, I wouldn't say anything is good enough. Everything could be better, but as we talked about it, I found good success in a recursive
Right.
review of things like code or something.
Okay. All right. What's a place where you insist on evidence outside of the model?
Everything.
All right. What's an activity we should happily delegate to agents as it's safe?
Um, I what do I delegate? I think anything that is
Reading
like
my blog.
already no anything that's like already pretty well defined with like success criteria attached to it.
Okay.
I could delegate that.
All right. And what's something that the converse of that, what would you never give an agent to do in the context of today's systems?
Um, Anything that's like relational with people. Like I don't want it like messaging people on my behalf or,
Right.
talking to people for me or anything like that.
I watched that I think you just posted it was it today even like the everything's changed, the work's changed thing. It was a big long video they did, and I think the guy who spoke after you, it was making a lot of sense what he was saying, and then he said, so I told my agent to craft an email using my voice and get. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to hear that. Like
No,
that's
I
the last thing
don't.
you got is your voice, man. Don't you know.
People get really upset about that. Like I saw somebody go off on Twitter, like, man, I thought we had a good relationship, and this
Mm,
dude sends me an AI generated email. He like blocked the guy. I was like, oh, he's
yeah.
pretty upset about that. So yeah, write your own emails.
Yeah, I don't like if I sense it's an AI comment or AI generated
Yeah,
anything, I
yeah.
don't respond to it. I usually send them that little clip of Boris Johnson going, "Do you like AI?" I mean that's all
Yeah,
they
all of
get
that.
from me.
Responding on social media to people with your AI generated, that sucks.
It's
Nobody wants
gross.
that.
Yes. All right, two last ones here. So, what is one thing that AI skeptics need to admit about AI?
Skeptics that it is useful, that there is some utility. Maybe it's not like everything, but there's some utility. You cannot still say, oh, it's totally useless.
Okay. And then the converse of that is what's one thing the agentic AI industry needs to become much more skeptical about?
Um, that it can run everything, right? So if
Mm.
you are thinking you can replace a human being, like I don't know of any job that I would be like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with like deleting the human from that job and giving that to the agent, right? Like even
Yeah.
the agents that I built for to help me operationally, they're not just like hands off. I still gotta like get in there and do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the least I can do. So like whatever, I do find it useful for some things, but I'd still probably have be wearing a skeptic hat. So, look, lastly, where are you going to be these days? How can people, I mean, I will have your blog and, your LinkedIn, but where are you going to be at these days? What do you want people to know about?
Yeah, I am going on Tech Girl World Tour. Um, so I leave it's the whole month of September, as well as October. I'm all over the place. So Agentic AI Foundation is throwing a bunch of conferences. I'll be in China, and I'll be in Tokyo, Japan, and I'll be in Amsterdam. Keith, you should come. I'm going to send you a
Mm.
ticket. And I'll be in San Jose. And this conference is called Agent Con plus MCP Con. So you all definitely should come. And if you need a discount code, I do have one.
All right.
Community 25.
All right. Well, we'll put the links to all that in the show notes. And hey, Angie, thank you. It was wonderful catching up with you. Hopefully, it wasn't too rough. I know I'm ask a lot of
No, it's
questions.
always a
So,
great time. Always a
yeah,
great conversation. Thank you, Keith.
it was great catching up with my friend. And we'll see if you send me a ticket to the Amsterdam one. I'll see if I can swing my way over there.
Love it. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All righty.